You know something? Triple Threat is one of the most unique entries in all of MLP. I think this episode has shown us something that we've wanted to see in the series for years, while giving us exactly what we've been complaining about for years, all at the same time. And that's quite an achievement, I must say. Spike. Beloved by fans when in the supporting role, and sometimes dismissed or even berated by fans when in the starring role. It's been no secret that over the years, the writers, more often than not, weren't quite sure what to do with Spike. Plenty of his stories start with his short-sightedness being the source of the conflict, often avoiding the very obvious solution that could cut the episode's runtime in half. And Triple Threat is no exception. The story begins well enough, with Spike making preparations for Ember's visit to Ponyville, and not realizing that he managed to invite Thorax over on the same day. When I first read the synopsis for this story months ago, I was genuinely interested to see whether there might have been any past history between the dragons and the changelings, a grudge or a battle that would give Spike a fair reason to start panicking about Ember and Thorax meeting face to face. But it turns out that it's all about making assumptions. Again. Something we've seen more than a few times before in this series. Though, to be fair, we can at least give credit that Spike has shown a history of panicking in unexpected circumstances and imagining the worst possible scenarios, like back during the Equestria games. So, while we have had several conflicts centered around Spike's short-sightedness and avoiding very obvious solutions before, I think I'm actually okay with it here. Unlike previous stories where Spike's motivations are due to his selfishness, this time he's worried about starting a war that could spill over into Equestria. True, it's his imagination getting away from him, but we can appreciate that his heart is in the right place, even when he's making those lame excuses. And yes, I will admit this episode is following a lot of the same beats we've seen in a lot of other stories. I really wouldn't blame anyone for calling this out as predictable. Except there are a few legitimate surprises here. I mean, who could have seen this coming? I know the map has been calling others besides the main six, but it's always been at the very start of an episode, and it's always been connected to a cutie mark. Who could have guessed that a dragon's scales were the equivalent? Or is this just a little more evidence that Spike may in fact be part pony like I had predicted a long while back? Who knows? At any rate, I'd like to address Ember and Thorax here. Ember's role in trying to learn more about friendship while acting brash and arrogant, coupled with Thorax's role in trying to learn more about leadership while acting meek and unsure, actually brings an interesting angle to the series that I hadn't really considered before. I started this review talking about how the episode showed us an element that we've been complaining about for years. Stories focused on Spike with conflicts sparked by his short-sightedness and avoiding very obvious solutions. However, Triple Threat also gives us something we've been wanting to see for many years. A far more defined role for Spike in the future of MLP. And while many fans have suggested that Spike needed to grow up before the writers could really make good use of him in the long run, that's not entirely true. Indeed, Spike is not quite as childish as he was in the early seasons, but he's not completely past those tendencies either. Far more important than changing Spike to fit the needs of MLP was to introduce long-running characters that better fit with stories about Spike. When we first saw Ember and Thorax come into the series, I doubt many of us would have considered that this was the eventual plan, but it makes sense. It makes so much sense. And honestly, I have to applaud the writers for building this up. Even more so when Thorax drops hints that a subset of changelings still want to feed on love, and Ember hints that some of the dragons aren't really interested in friendship. That changeling and dragon war may still happen sometime down the line, and putting Spike right in the center of it so early on, Intriguing. Most intriguing. If we were to look at Triple Threat as just a standalone story, though, it's good. I admit there's actually a lot more to talk about outside the episode, but there are still a few moments that caught me off guard. Ember mistaking Starlight for Twilight, even when they're right next to each other, might seem a bit out of place at first, but they actually make a really good connection with Spike making assumptions about both Thorax and Ember at the very start of the episode. Plus, as I've said before, I'm actually okay with Spike's usual short-sightedness here. I really think the writers are taking his character in a really good direction while keeping him the same character. What do you think, though? Given Spike's past episodes in the series, how does this story compare to his previous outings? With both Ember and Thorax playing larger roles with each passing season, and their subtle hints at a possible divide between their subjects, what do you suppose might be coming in their futures? I would like to hear your thoughts on Triple Threat, and here's to you, Spike. Glad to see the writers are finding a far clearer role for you in the series after all. I am Dr. Wolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.